Do you feel like God has more for your life, but you're just stuck where you are? You sit there doing the same things every day, scrolling, gaming, distracting yourself, and deep down you feel it. This isn't it. Like there's something God is calling you to, and you just can't seem to move. And the worst part, it's not that you don't care, it's that you're comfortable. And comfort can slowly kill your calling. And most of you who are watching aren't subscribed, so if you can help me out, if you like content like this, hit the subscribe button. Now let's get into this. The reason comfort is so dangerous is because it doesn't feel wrong. It actually feels safe. It feels normal to sit down after a long day and just escape, to distract yourself, to put off the things you know you should be doing. And over time, that becomes your life. Not because you made some big decision to walk away from God, but because you slowly chose comfort over obedience, again and again. And eventually, you start to feel it, that tension, that quiet conviction that says, you were made for more than this. James, the book of James, talks about this over and over again, not just believing, but actually doing something with it. In chapter 4, verse 17, it says, remember, it is sin to know what you ought to do and then not do it. Because it's not always the things you're doing that are holding you back. It's the things you're avoiding, the steps you keep delaying, the obedience you keep putting off. And all of it gets hidden under one word, comfort. And earlier in chapter 2, verse 17, James says, so you see, faith by itself isn't enough. Unless it produces good deeds, it is dead and useless. That's heavy, because it means you can believe in God and you can say you have faith, but if it never moves you into action, if it never changes how you live, it's not real faith. And that's where a lot of people get stuck. Not because they don't believe, but because they've settled into a version of faith that never actually costs them anything. A version of faith that stays comfortable. And the longer you stay in comfort, the easier it becomes to stay there. At first, you feel it, that conviction, that pull, that sense that you should be doing something more. But when you ignore it once, it's easier to ignore it the next time, and then the next, until eventually what once bothered you doesn't affect you anymore. And that's the danger. Not that you fall all at once, but that you slowly stop responding to God. In James chapter 1, verse 22, it says, but don't just listen to God's word. You must do what it says, otherwise you are fooling yourselves. I've used this verse before because every time you hear what's right and choose not to act, something shifts in you. You start convincing yourself you're fine. You start justifying where you are. You start lowering the standard. And over time, your faith becomes something you hear and not something you live. And James continues in verse 23 and 24 saying, for if you listen to the word and don't obey, it is like glancing at your face in a mirror. You see yourself, walk away, and forget what you look like. You see the truth. You recognize it. You even feel convicted by it. But then you walk away, and nothing changes. And this is where comfort traps you. Always thinking about change, but never actually stepping into it. And this is the part most people don't want to hear. You can't stay comfortable and step into what God is calling you to do. At some point, you have to choose, because calling always requires something from you. It requires you to step out when you don't feel ready. It requires discipline when you'd rather relax. It requires obedience when it would be easier not to. And I know this personally. For over 2 years, I knew I was supposed to be doing this, making videos, talking about God, stepping out and using my voice, the gift that God's given me. But I didn't do it. Not because I didn't care, but because I was comfortable. It was easier to stay where I was, easier to put it off, easier to say, I'll start later. Until I had to face it. I wasn't waiting on God. I was avoiding obedience. And that's when everything changed. Not when I felt ready, not when it became easy, but when I decided I'm going to do what God is calling me to do, even if it's uncomfortable. Jesus never called people to comfort. He called them to follow him. In Luke 9, verse 23, and I'll bring this verse up again and again, It says, "Then he said to the crowd, 'If any of you wants to be my follower, you must give up your own way, take up your cross daily, and follow me.'" That's daily. Every day you wake up, you're choosing comfort or calling. So what do you actually do? First, stop waiting for a feeling. You don't need perfect clarity. Most of the time, you already know the direction, you just haven't acted on it. In James chapter 1 verse 6, it says, "But when you ask him, be sure that your faith is in God alone. Do not waver." Ask God for direction, but be ready to move when he gives it. Second, start small, but start now. Your calling doesn't begin with something big. It begins with the next step, the thing you've been avoiding, the thing you've been putting off. Third, cut off what's keeping you comfortable. If something is pulling you back, you have to deal with it, not manage it, not justify it, remove it. In Hebrews chapter 12, verse 1, it says, "Let us strip off every weight that slows us down, especially the sin that so easily trips us up." If it's slowing you down, it has to go. Fourth, build discipline, not just motivation. Motivation fades, but discipline keeps you moving even when you don't feel like it. In Galatians chapter 6, verse 9, it says, "So let's not get tired of doing what is good. At just the right time, we will reap a harvest of blessing if we don't give up." And finally, trust God with the outcome. You don't need everything figured out. You just need to take the next step in faith. Proverbs 3, verse 5 to 6 says, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Do not depend on your own understanding. Seek his will in all you do, and he will show you which path to take." Because your calling isn't something you discover all at once. It's something you walk into through obedience. So if you've been feeling stuck, like you know God has more for your life, but you're still in the same place, now you know why. It's not that you don't believe, it's that comfort became more normal than obedience. But nothing changes until you move. There's a step in front of you right now, and deep down, you know what it is. So don't just hear this. Don't just agree with it. Actually do something with it. Take the step. Start today. Choose calling over comfort. And if you're serious about growing in your faith and actually living this out, subscribe and share this with a friend. I know you have somebody in your life that needs to hear this. So send this to them and let's take this journey together. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.